Hey everybody, we're going to get started in about 5 minutes here, but I do want to check that the audio is working. So if you can hear me, can you type yes into your question box, please? All right, I do have that confirmation. Thank you, everyone. We will get started here in just a few minutes. All right, hello everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, Preparing for That Screening. I've got a lot of good stuff to share today, but before I get started, just a couple of those normal items to take care of. We will have time for questions at the end of the presentation, and you can type those into that question box in the lower portion of your control panel, and we will be posting a recording of the webinar online, but if you would like a copy of the presentation in PDF format, or if your question does not get answered today, or if any other questions come up, please email our support inbox, which will be shown at the end as well. All right, here's our agenda for today. I want to give you some habits that you can start creating today that will help you either maintain or improve those screening results for this year. I'm going to go through nutrition, exercise, stress, sleep, which biometrics they affect, and realistic ideas on what you can do to create a healthier day-to-day. Now, to save some space and time, I'm not going to go into the actual risk ranges of each biometric, but if you're interested in those and where you fall for each and where you want to fall, go ahead to your myhealthcheck360.com account and you can download your individual report to see where you fall and where you want to be. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to start with nutrition today. So what does what you are putting in your body affect? Well, everything. It's really hard to underestimate how important your nutrition is when it comes to things like your weight, your blood pressure, your glucose, your cholesterol, all of those things that are on our screening. So let's get into a few specific examples. How does your nutrition affect your BMI and your waist measurement? As a reminder, that BMI or body mass index is a risk level based on your height versus your weight. So a higher body weight and a higher waist measurement are correlated with many health concerns, many having to do with heart disease, things like that. And most of us know if we eat too much in general, no matter what we're eating, we will most likely gain weight. That's nothing new. But let's talk about another way to look at it. If we eat too many foods that are calorie dense, meaning they have a lot of calories, but they aren't nutritionally dense, meaning that they don't have good vitamins, nutrients, minerals in them, and they're made up of, say, more processed sugars and other non-natural ingredients, our body isn't going to use them properly. For example, for breakfast, if you grab, say, 2 donuts that are basically just sugar, your body's going to have to store the majority of those because your body can't use up that much sugar at one time. So that stored sugar turns into additional weight on your body, and typically those sugars end up at our waistline. So those are the 2 biometrics we're talking about. That's what's going to happen there. But if you have scrambled eggs with peppers and spinach mixed in, your body's going to say, hey, that protein in the eggs can go to my muscles. Those vitamins and minerals and the veggies can go to my brain and my cells and all the other places my body can use them. No leftovers to store. That's the difference. That's what I mean by calorie versus nutrient density. I'm going to get into some more specific examples of what you can change and how to kind of start, but let's get through the rest of the biometrics and how nutrition affects those. Next is blood pressure. High blood pressure puts us at risk for things like heart attacks and strokes. Now, many people think that the connection with nutrition and blood pressure is just salt in your diet. Now, in a roundabout way, you can look at salt, but the main thing that is going to affect blood pressure when it comes to nutrition comes back to that same place as your BMI, avoiding overeating in general and cutting down on processed foods, which is where that salt comes in, is that a lot of those processed and boxed and frozen meals tend to have a large amount of salt in them. So there's a correlation there. If you focus on healthy sources of protein and then your fruits and your veggies, your blood pressure is going to thank you for that. And actually, the American Heart Association just recently updated the standards for blood pressure. Some of you might have seen that. They're tightening down on where you should be with regard to blood pressure. So it's even more important to focus on what you can do for that specific measurement. Before I move on, I just want to take a second to define what I mean by processed foods, as I will touch on this a lot, and this question does come up. What do you mean by processed foods? Basically, I mean foods that are not in their natural state. So things like boxed, frozen meals, crackers, cereals, frozen pizzas, desserts, hot dogs, sugar, candy, that type of thing, refined breads and grains. As we are processing those, and we take away some of those benefits like fiber. So like your white breads and your white pastas typically don't have the good amount, and they turn to sugar in our body. So also adding things to food like sugars, other sweeteners, chemicals, and preservatives would be considered processed too. So we can have a long discussion and a whole webinar about better and worse, quote unquote, processed foods. But for now, I just want you to have a goal of cutting down on those types of foods, focusing more on your fresh fruits and veggies, your good sourced proteins, things like that. So let's move on to cholesterol here. We need cholesterol in our bodies, but some of us tend to have too much, and that can put us at a risk for heart disease, things like that. This is a big one when it comes to how much your nutrition plays a part. Again, this is a whole webinar in itself, but here are just a few ways our eating affects cholesterol specifically. With our HDL, which is our healthy cholesterol, that's the one we want to see higher. When it comes to food, lack of fiber and lack of healthy fats. So not getting enough of those things is bad news for that HDL. LDL, that's the bad stuff that we want to see lower as far as cholesterol. Again, this is going to come back to that quality of our food choices. Lack of fiber, again, has a big negative effect on our LDL, so that's one key. And again, processed foods, specifically foods that are heavy in those processed carbohydrates and that are fried or cooked in heavily processed oils. So your vegetable oils, things like that, can have a big effect on that LDL specifically. Triglycerides, which is the last part in our cholesterol, the amount of food we consume plays a big role in our triglycerides. If we overconsume food and calories in general, we're typically going to see a rise in our triglycerides. And again, over-consuming those negative carbohydrates like your refined white breads, pastas, chips, crackers, and those types of things will have a negative effect on those triglycerides. And then we've got glucose. Glucose is the sugar in your blood. So it makes sense that the biggest culprit in our diet that affects glucose is sugar. Liquid sugars and things like sodas, sweetened teas, juices are a big one. Those are really easily stored by our body and affect that blood sugar and that glucose. And those refined carbohydrates, again, that have just been stripped of the benefits and make them break down quicker in our bodies and affect that glucose. We want those whole grains. And so the refines are going to affect our glucose in a negative way. So what can we do now that we've got some info on how eating affects our specific biometrics for the screening? Where can you start? First step, tracking. Now don't roll your eyes at me. Tracking works. If you don't know what you're actually taking in on a daily basis, how can you set a goal to improve? And how do you know that you're improving? Because you can't take your cholesterol readings every day, right? You have to have a goal and you have to be able to set it. So today, if you don't have an app to track, download. You can use the myhealthcheck360.com app, or if you already have one, dust it off, start using it again. If you don't have a smartphone or don't want to use an app, you can go to myhealthcheck360.com and sign into your account. You can track on the computer there. I know you can do that with other apps as well. You can do them on the computers. So once you get a feel for what you're eating, and by the way, you can also track on pen and paper too. Sorry, I don't want to leave that out. You can go back and do the old school. There's nothing wrong with that. But once you get a feel for what you're eating and how much protein, carbohydrates, sugars, fats you're taking in, you can start to set some small goals. Now, I know what you're going to ask me. I cannot tell you exactly how much you need of each of these. That depends on many, many factors like your exercise level, your age, your gender, health conditions, things like that. But I'm going to give you a couple places to start. The Fruits and Veggies More Matters campaign recommends 5 to 9 servings of fruits and veggies. So the more the better when it comes to fruits and veggies. So if you start tracking and you aren't seeing those good amounts of fruits and veggies, set some goals around that. That's easy. Veggies are typically going to give you a few more nutrients, so focus on getting those as the majority of those servings. Fruits are great, but veggies are really going to give you a little bit more good stuff in them. And the great thing with setting goals that are focused on getting more of something, like getting more fruits and veggies, is that typically if you choose to eat these healthier whole foods first, you won't be as hungry for those maybe not so good foods, so you automatically cut down on them. That's a win-win, right? Another thing to look at, tracking, the American Heart Association recommends no more than 36 grams of added sugars for men and 25 for women. And I can bet many of us, myself included, are well over that some days. So that's another fantastic place to start to set some small goals too. Now, added sugars, as a reminder, are those that don't occur naturally in foods. So your fruits are okay as far as sugars, but that sugary cereal or those donuts that you had for breakfast this morning is something that you're going to want to cut down on, and that's going to count towards those grams per day that are recommended. If your LDL is high, look at tracking to see if you're getting enough fiber, because I already talked about that, right? The recommended amount is 25 grams for women, 21 if you're over 50, and 38 for men, or 30 if you're over 50. If your HDL is too low, look to see if you're getting in the 8 ounces of fish, not fried fish, per week that is recommended. The possibilities of tracking and goals around tracking are endless. And again, small steps. What works for you is not going to work for someone else. So you set goals based on where you are, and you're going to see progress. And then tracking is going to give you those benchmarks to continue to see the progress and can help keep up that motivation, because you're going to see where you started and you're going to see where you ended, and it's going to be good stuff. So you're tracking and you're finding some areas you want to work on. What's next? Research and planning. If you know you need more fiber or fruits and veggies in your diet, look up recipes online that have them in there. The great news is that there are about, well, infinity options online when it comes to finding recipes, and healthy ones are out there too, contrary to most of what are the Facebook posts that you see with all those desserts, or at least what I see. So today, I want you to find some time in your schedule in the next week and sit down, do some research. If you're not a computer person, go to the library, go to the bookstore, see if they have any books on healthy cooking. Once you've got some meals that you want to try, make your grocery list. Meal planning is something that can make or break your success. Having your foods in your house and your meals planned, or even some of them pre-prepped or even pre-cooked, is one of the best things you can do for yourself. And you can start with pre-planning 1 meal a week, and then 2, and then 3. It doesn't have to be all at once. Take it baby steps again. It's a habit to get into just like anything else, but once you get into it, you're not going to regret it. We actually did a meal prep webinar back in March if you want to get some more tips on that as well. And then lastly, focus on whole foods. I've said this already multiple times, but truly, if you focus on quality source proteins, whether it's meat like your fish, your chicken, your beef, your vegetarian options like quinoa, like beans, and then you get in your veggies, your fruits, your whole grains, your water for your liquid side of things, you will be healthier and those biometrics will get better. I added this on here. We get a lot of people that ask how to prepare veggies or just tell us they don't know how to get them in. Write down this website, eatingwell.com, and then do a search of how to cook 20 vegetables. It gives you a list of what to look for when you're picking them out, how to prep them, and various ways to cook them. Good stuff. And actually, Coach Steph did a webinar last month for the Fresh Finds that talks about even growing your own veggies and what to choose, and a couple of recipes on there. So go look at that webinar as well. All right, let's move on to exercise. We'll start again with that BMI and measurements and how they affect those first. Now, I'm keeping it very, very simple today. If we don't exercise, we don't burn additional calories, we store those calories, and we gain weight, right? Again, there's more factors to consider, but high level, this is one way exercise affects our weight. Blood pressure. The heart is a muscle like any other muscle in our body. It needs to be stressed to strengthen. So when we increase our heart rate through exercise, we put stress on our heart, and our heart responds by getting stronger, which is going to keep it healthier longer, right? Makes sense. Cholesterol, again, very, very simple here. Exercise can help the body produce enzymes that help get rid of that LDL. And it also increases our good cholesterol, that HDL, which also helps get rid of that LDL. And exercise has been shown to lower triglycerides as well. So 3 for 3 on our cholesterol numbers with exercise. Can't beat that. I know I focused on getting the heart rate up for these examples so far, but strength training is very important as well. So more lean mass is going to keep you burning calories all day long, which again helps keep that weight down, which helps cholesterol with all that stuff. So it's all combined here. So exercise is a plus no matter what you're doing for the exercise. And then glucose. Exercise helps control our glucose levels by increasing our insulin sensitivity, which means that our muscles are better able to take up glucose during and even after activity, leaving less of that extra blood sugar floating around in the bloodstream. This means that the insulin, less insulin needs to work, which means less risk of getting diabetes. And again, more lean mass with strength training helps us use up extra sugars too. So lots of good reasons to exercise, sounds like. So what are we going to do? The best way to get started with exercise is to do something. I don't care if it's 5 minutes walking around your living room. It's better than nothing. Get up right now and walk in place while you're listening to me ramble on if you can. I mean, anytime you're in a place that you can move, you should do it. Now, the goal is 150 minutes of moderate exercise each week or 75 minutes of more intense exercise, but that doesn't mean you have to start off at that level. And it doesn't mean you have to be in big chunks of time either. You can break that up into any increments that you want. So today, again, I'm going to ask you to get that schedule out again. Look at the next week. Find some time to walk, to run, to do push-ups, to dance, to go to the gym, whatever it is that you can do. If all you can find is 10 minutes, well, you need to learn to say no to some things. Just kidding, but that's fine. 10 minutes is 10 minutes. You have a starting point. We hear a lot that people don't have time to exercise. Yes, our lives are busy, absolutely. But if you can find time to scroll through and like or pin those exercise videos, you can find time to do them, I think. Just go through your schedule. You can find time, I promise. Again, 5 minutes is 5 minutes. And I have listed on here some of the times that you can look for in your day to see if you want to sneak something in. If you can start to create a habit of exercise, you will find that it's easier to want to build in more time as you start to feel better mentally and physically. Then you can build up to that recommended amount eventually. But again, for health benefits and these biometric benefits, it really doesn't take that much to start seeing improvements. The key is just to get started and get started now, sooner rather than later. Then you can continue and build from there and keep seeing even more results. So again, exercise, just start, just do something. All right, stress. How does stress make us gain weight? Most of you are probably familiar with the hormone cortisol. As a refresher, cortisol is released when our body is in a stress state, and it triggers us to store fat and energy. Our body is getting ready to face some threat, so we need that stored energy and fat to fight that threat. Now, our threats are not the same as early humans, but our body doesn't know that, and it continues to release cortisol. And unfortunately, many of us live in a state of elevated stress due to our jobs, our personal life, life events, things like commuting, technology. So if our body is continuously releasing cortisol, it's continuously telling our body to store fat. And cortisol and other stress hormones add insult to injury by making us crave more of that quick energy, like sugars, in case we need to make a quick run for our lives. But again, we don't need that quick energy with the stress we are facing. We don't run physically away from our stressors. Sometimes we might want to, but we don't. And our bodies store those extra sugars again and again and again, creating a vicious cycle and causing the BMI and our measurements to go up. Blood pressure. This is one that probably most of you know. Stress raises our blood pressure. A lot of times we can actually feel that happening, right? We're stressed, we feel our heart rate increase and get that uncomfortable sensation. But similar to that cortisol being released consistently, that blood pressure can start to stay elevated, giving us higher readings and some major risks for heart attacks, heart disease, and things like that. Cholesterol. That stress hormone cortisol may be to blame for increased numbers here as well. Some studies show that cortisol can trigger an increase in our triglyceride levels. That's just one example of cholesterol. Stress can cause inflammation in our bodies that can increase the LDL cholesterol as well. So just scratching the surface there, but just know that stress can affect our cholesterol too. Glucose, I pretty much covered that with the BMI, but I'll reiterate here. When that cortisol is released, it causes us to crave those sugary foods, leading to short-term increase in glucose. But if we don't turn that cortisol off, that cycle keeps going, right? And when we store that extra fat that is created, we typically store it in our abdomen, which leads to greater risk of insulin resistance, which leads to type 2 diabetes. Stress also affects these biometrics indirectly with things like emotional eating or stress eating, as some of you may know it. So handling stress in your life should be right at the top of that priority list to help your physical health and these biometrics. And one area I haven't mentioned yet on the screenings is that nicotine test. Stress is a huge factor in using nicotine products. A lot of people use that as a go-to when they're stressed. Now, the health concerns of using nicotine cancer, to name just one, is just one more addition to the massive list of reasons to help yourself deal with stress. And as we don't have time again today to devote to the topic, we did just do a webinar on stress not too long ago again. But if you're ready to quit nicotine on that side of things, talk to your doctor about options and then give us a call. Chat with our health coach to help support you in that journey. We help keep the focus on both the physical as well as the behavioral side of quitting, and then we can help with questions on any strategies that you're using, as there are a lot of misconceptions on how to best use quit aids and nicotine replacement therapy. So our contact info will be up at the end, so please reach out. So you've got stress, just like everyone else. What steps can you take now to deal with what you've got? First, figure out your stressors and decide if you can change them or not. Are they in your control or are they out of your control? Can you avoid a certain person or situation? Can you turn off the negative news stories or social media, take a less busy route home, avoid getting in the elevator with negative Nick or Debbie Downer? Some things we actually can change if we think about it. But a lot of our stressors are not something that we can avoid, at least not every time it comes around. So if you can't avoid the stressors, you need to accept that. Stress is part of our daily lives. There's no getting around it. And stress can produce some great ideas and products. But to use stress to our advantage and not let it take a negative tone, we have to change our mindset about it. If you cannot control the stressor, then you can use other tools to help the positive thoughts outweigh those negative influences. One way to do that is to practice gratitude. It's so easy to focus on the negative, and our brains are actually hardwired to do that in some sense. But taking some time to focus on what we are grateful for and what's positive in our lives can make a huge difference in how we see and react to our stressors. You can take gratitude walks to focus on things that are positive in your life, or you can do that during your commute, focus on those positive things, and turn what can be a really stressful event with your commute into a more useful and valuable time. Having a paper or electronic gratitude journal is a physical way to practice gratefulness for what we have. But again, make it a goal today to take some time every day to either think or write down some things you're grateful for. It really, really does change your mindset, I promise. Next step for stress relief is breathing, specifically deep breathing. When we're stressed and things are getting a bit more than we can handle, we typically do the opposite of deep breathing. Our breath usually comes out quicker and shallower, giving us that opposite of calming effect. We're fully in that stress mode or that fight or flight response. So taking a minute or even 30 seconds to focus on that breathing will help your body physically calm down. So do this with me. Sit up straight, or you can stand. Put your hand right on your belly. I want you to slowly inhale through your nose. Unless you have a cold, then you can do it through your mouth. Feeling that breath raise your belly and fill your body. So we want the belly to come out, not necessarily the shoulders to come up. And then when you exhale, exhale through your mouth. And so that's it. That's simple as that. Now do it nice and slow and for as long as you need. It could be a couple breaths, or it could be 2 or 3 minutes. It could be 10 minutes, whatever time you've got. When we take time to physically calm ourselves down, we're better able to handle that stressor or stressors that may come later. Meditation goes along with deep breathing as well. You can simply listen to some calming music or nature sounds, focus on your breathing, just being in the present. You can also do guided meditation where someone gives you direction on where to focus your thoughts and gives you a positive message while you're listening and breathing. There's some excellent apps out there. Headspace and Insight Timer are a couple favorites of the coaches. I wish I had more time to go into how valuable meditation can be, but please do some research and think about trying it. You won't regret it again. Coach Katie Jo will also be doing a webinar in September specifically on meditation and how to get started, so be on the lookout for that too. Now, the last tip I have on stress is to create a stress relief toolbox for yourself. Now, this isn't as complicated as it seems. All I want you to do is make a list of some healthy ways to relax and de-stress. The list should be decent size and can include sub-lists for work or home or whatever situation that you typically get stressed. Examples: going for a walk, calling a friend, playing with your kids, playing with your pets, listening to music, reading, deep breathing, writing in that gratitude journal that I just told you to get, whatever it may be that makes your heart happy. You should strive to do at least one of these things every single day, even if you don't feel stressed. taking some time to make sure you are relaxing and have some quality time with a feel-good activity is going to help you deal with the stress you already have, and it's going to help you deal with that stressors that you aren't anticipating coming in the future, because that reaction, you're going to automatically have a better reaction because you've got those tools in your toolbox. All right, last but certainly not least is sleep. Sleep sets the tone for our entire day, right? So let's talk specifics on how it affects those biometrics. People that sleep less than 6 hours per day, or excuse me, per night or day, if you work nights, are more likely to have a higher weight and in turn higher measurements. 7 to 9 hours is the goal, and that's the optimal level that we want. When we sleep, our bodies secrete hormones to help us control our appetite, help our energy metabolism, and our glucose processing. When we don't get enough sleep, those hormones get all messed up. Two of the main hormones when it comes to appetite are leptin and ghrelin. Leptin alerts the brain that it has enough food, and ghrelin stimulates appetite or alerts our brain that we are hungry. We release less leptin and more ghrelin when we don't have enough sleep. That's the exact opposite of what we want, right? And when the ghrelin comes in abundance, it makes us crave that quick energy, again, similar to cortisol, like sugar, really the opposite of what we want. And again, we also actually release more cortisol specifically, which I've already mentioned, which causes an increase in blood sugar. And lack of sleep simply lowers our motivation and our energy, right? Our judgment is worse, which leads to poor decisions. And we already know because of our stress conversation that cortisol can cause issues with blood sugar and cholesterol. So now we know those will be affected by lack of sleep or sleep quality as well. If we're tired, we don't want to exercise, we want to reach for those sugary foods, which leads to weight gain and blood sugar and cholesterol issues. And then blood pressure too. It is actually thought that sleep helps your body regulate those stress hormones that we've already talked about. And those hormones help regulate our blood pressure, because that's what we talked about with stress. So there's our connection with the blood pressure too. So what are some things with sleep that you can do today? First, create a routine. If you can go to sleep and wake up at the same time every night, that's fantastic. But I also know that a lot of you guys can't do that. So if you have a similar routine before you go to bed, you can probably shift that time a little bit and still get to sleep quickly and hopefully get quality sleep. So a few options include unplugging from electronics, listening to music, reading, warm baths, deep breathing, meditation, really anything that relaxes you is good. And if you're thinking that you don't have that much time before bed to do things, just again, start with what you have and create a routine accordingly. The next thing you need to focus on is your environment. We'll start with your bed. Good mattress, sheets, pillows are a massive plus when it comes to your sleep quality. Sleep.org has some great tips on softness, materials, and other things you should be on the lookout for when it comes to choosing materials, depending on your sleep position, because it does make a difference on how you sleep and what you want to be looking for. Temperature. Suggested the temperature should be between 60 and 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Noise. Your brain does continue to register sounds while you're sleeping, so it makes sense that noise can affect our sleep. Earplugs, white noise can work. White noise works because it reduces the difference between background noise and what's called a peak noise, like a car door slamming or a dog barking or something loud driving by your house, things like that. Smell. Certain scents that keep you calm and relaxed, like lavender, if you feel like those work, keep those handy. And also washing your sheets can help with some of those other odors that may be lurking around there too. Light. There are a couple different types of light that can affect our sleep. Regular light, like from your hallway or outside, can cause wake-ups. Strive to keep your room as dark as you possibly can. Blackout curtains are a great option. Try not to have night lights or lights from your hallways coming into your room either. If you can't close your door to prevent that, try to situate your bed so at least you don't face that way. Or you can use a sleep mask to cover your eyes. They make you feel fancier too, right? So you can always use those. The other kind of light you need to be aware of comes from technology. Blue light is the light that comes from our devices like TVs, computers, tablets, and phones. Technology in the hour before bedtime can delay the production of melatonin, which is the hormone that helps us sleep. So the dream goal would be to not have any tech in front of you the hour before bedtime. Unfortunately, for a lot of us, it may not be realistic. So until you can get to that point, there's some other options that you can do. One is having a pair of blue light blocking glasses. They actually can reduce the effects that blue light has from your devices on those hormones. And some phones actually have a night shift or a night mode that neutralizes the blue light that it emits as well. So those are a couple options that you can do. So that's it for my habits here. So you wrote down some stuff, you're going to start doing it, you're making some great lifestyle changes, and it's screening day or the day before screening day. Here's some tips to keep in mind so you can have that best experience. First, I want you to fast for 8 to 12 hours. I'd shoot for right in the middle of that range if you can, around the 10 or so. You can have water, and you should actually drink water so that your veins are more ready to get blood drawn. Also, big thing, avoid strenuous activity within 24 hours of the screening, because that can affect your results. Now, I know I just told you to go exercise, but take it easy the day before the screening. And then don't forget, there might be some additional biometrics on your report when you get it back as well. Things like A1C for blood sugars, thyroid testing, PSA, which is a prostate test, complete blood count, or just some of the added tests that your company can have. So be on the lookout for those as well. And as always, always share these results with your doctor once you get them so they can have them in their file and provide you feedback as well. All right, here's your checklist for today to keep it simple. Take some time. Put yourself on your own priority list. Make sure you are doing what you can to get the healthiest you before the screening. Try to pick one of each of the sections I talked about today. Start now, and we'll get you in good shape here. All right, before we go to questions, just what the next webinars are coming up. Next month, just a note, July 4th is the first Wednesday of the month, so we're going to push our webinar back to July 11th. So it's going to be actually the second Wednesday of July, and we're going to talk about living healthy on a budget. And then in August 1st, Incredible H2O, we're going to talk about water and all of the great things that you get when you're drinking water. All right, I'm going to put our contact information up here. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we've got our blog. That blog's going to be where you're going to watch this webinar and past webinars. We're on Instagram, and then you can give us a call or shoot us an email. Our stuff's down there. So, all right, I'm going to open it up. We've still got a couple more minutes here for questions.